All right, so now that we know everything there is to know about radicals, our objective is to solve some radical equations. And so in Khan Academy, you can just search solving radical equations and there'll be a 5 in a row for you to do. Now let's look at this problem. It says 10 square root of x minus 5 equals 2 square root of x plus 10. We're trying to figure out what we can put in for x to make the left side equal to the right side. Well, let me rewrite the equation so that I can work with it some. So I've got 10 square root of x minus 5 equals 2 square root of x plus 10. Well, I can see that this square root of x is a like term with this one, so I'm going to subtract 2 square roots of x from both sides. And so this cancels on the right, and on the left I have 8 square roots of x minus 5 equals 10. And so now I need to get that negative 5 to the right, so I will add 5 to both sides, and so I have 8 square root of x equals 15. And now, just like any other equation, I'm trying to get the square root of x by itself, and the 8 is being multiplied here, so the opposite of multiplication is division, so I'm going to divide 8 on both sides, and so I have square root of x equals 15 over 8. So far we really haven't done anything you don't already know, but here's where we will. So the equation's not solved until the only thing on the left is an x. So I need to figure out how can I get rid of this square root. Well, what is the opposite of square root? Well, the opposite of square root is squared. So I need to square this side, and I need to square this side. So if the opposite of square root is squared, then that means that all that's left on the left side is x equals, and then I'm going to square 15 over 8. Well, that's the same thing as 15 over 8 times 15 over 8. Okay, and when you multiply fractions, you just multiply the top times the top. So 15 times 15 is 225. And 8 times 8 is 64. And so there's our answer. We solved for x. Now let's go and see if 225 over 64 is an answer choice. And when I look, I don't see 225 over 64. Oh, yes I do, right here. So that's our answer. X equals 225 over 64. Okay, so here's example 2. Now, if I were you, I would pause the video, I would write down the problem, and then I would see if you could solve it on your own, and once you're done, press play and see if you got it right. So the first thing I always like to do is rewrite the problem so that I can work on it. So I have 4 square roots of x minus 3 equals 8 square roots of x plus 2. And I need to solve this. Now what I like to do is I like to get the variables on the left side of the equal sign and the numbers without variables on the right side. So I am going to subtract 8 square roots of x from both sides. And what happens is it goes away from here, and then I've got 4 minus 8, which gives me negative 4 square roots of x minus 3 equals 2. And now the question is, how can I get that 3 on the right? Well, it's being subtracted, so I can add 3 to both sides like that. And so I have negative 4 square root of x equals 5. And remember, now I want to get rid of this negative 4 that's being multiplied by the square root of x. Well, the opposite of multiplication is, it's division. So I'm going to divide negative 4 on both sides. And so I have square root of x equals negative 5 over 4. And now I want to get rid of this square root of x. Well, as we solve equations, the way you get rid of something is to do the opposite. Well, what's the opposite of square root of x? Well, that's to square x. So I'm going to square both sides. Okay, and so that leaves me with only an x on the left. So I have x equals, and then I'm squaring negative 5 over 4. So that squaring it means I'm multiplying it by itself. So I'm doing negative 5 over 4 times negative 5 over 4. And when you multiply fractions, you just multiply the top times the top, which gives me 25. And the bottom times the bottom. You do not have to have like denominators when you multiply fractions. And so your answer is x equals 25 over 16. Let's go see if that's a choice. I do not see it here, or here, or here, or here. So the answer on this one is no solution. And I already worked it on Khan Academy, and I got it right. All right, so here's our last example. And like I said on the previous problem, if I were you, I'd pause the video. I'd try to solve it myself, and then I'd push play and see if I got it right. So here we go. 6 square root of x plus 4 equals 9 square root of x plus 3. Okay, so the first step, what do you think it is? Well, I'm trying to get this 9 square root of x on the left, so I will subtract 9 square root of x on both sides. And so I have negative 3 square root of x plus 4 equals 3. And now I'm trying to get that 4 right here to the right side, and it's positive, so the opposite of that is to subtract 4 from both sides. And so I have negative 3 square root of x equals, and 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Okay? And now I have this negative 3 being multiplied by the square root of x, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide negative 3 on both sides. And so I have square root of x equals, and a negative over a negative makes a positive, so it's going to equal 1/3. So now the last question is, well, what do I do to get rid of the square root here? Well, we just got done talking about the opposite of square root is squared, so I will square both sides. And so on the left I have x equals, and 1/3 squared means 1/3 times 1/3. And so x equals, well, 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 times 3 is 9. And so my answer is x equals 1/9. Let's go check it. And I can see right here I've got 1/9, which is the answer. All right, on this video, at the bottom right of your paper, I want you to put the word Apple TV really small in the bottom right of your paper, and that'll let me know that you watched the video. Apple TV.